SEC, Big 12, SEC again, Mountain West, Kyle Whittingham, Gene Chizik, Gus Malzahn, Bob Stoops, Lincoln Riley. Those are just a few. Mark Stoops. Those are some of the coaches and teams and conferences that Jay Boulware has coached in. Jay Boulware is reportedly is going to be hired at West Virginia to be the running backs coach to replace Larry Porter, who's leaving to go to Auburn. This live episode of Couz's Corner, we're going to talk about Jay Boulware and what kind of hire is this for the Mountaineers? Is it an underrated hire for the Mountaineers? This is not a coach that we had on our radar. At least I didn't. You know, we've talked about Jawan Sider. We've talked about Chad Scott, Rod McDowell, and others. Did not see Jay Boulware's name on any list. And to be honest, I was not even familiar with Jay Boulware until I saw the report from FootballScoop. Got a shout out to them and did some research. But I like this pickup, and it might be for more than what you think. We're going to go through this a little bit, but obviously the SEC experience that he has, he's been at Kentucky the last 3 seasons. That's really good. He's played against SEC competition. He spent time at Oklahoma. He spent time on the Texas staff. Coached under some great coaches. He was on the Auburn staff that won a national title back in 2010. So he's coached, Gus Malzahn, I believe, was the offensive coordinator for that team. Gene Chizik was the head coach. That was a team quarterbacked by Cam Newton. He was the tight ends coach on that staff. That's another thing. He's coached multiple positions. He's coached tight ends. He's coached running backs. And he's also been a special teams coordinator at just about every stop. And in my opinion, he might be an even better special teams coach than he is a running backs coach. Now, I don't know if he's being hired at West Virginia to be both. Are they going to put him at special teams coordinator and maybe not renew Pat Kirkland's contract, or maybe move Pat Kirkland to another position? Yet to be determined. But at least you've got somebody in Jay Boulware that can help out on special teams, which we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But West Virginia needs some help on special teams, and obviously they have to have a hold of feel in the running back room as for the coach there, so it all makes sense that you would add him to the staff. But when you look at Jay Boulware, obviously there's a photo of him. He's coming over from Kentucky. He's 50 years old, but has a ton of coaching experience, 25 years worth. I mentioned his last 3 years at Kentucky. He had an 1,100-yard rusher in 2023 in Ray Davis, who he also was responsible for recruiting based on my research. Davis was top of the SEC and top 5 nationally in touchdowns and total points scored. So he did a really good job. He's known as a really good developer of running backs. He's also known to be a good recruiter, especially out of the transfer portal. He helped them land the running back for leading rusher for this year's Kentucky team. In McGowan, his last name was McGowan. He helped land him out of the transfer portal. Seth McGowan had 165 carries for 725 yards, averaged 4.4 yards per carry, but that was on a Kentucky team that was not very good. Also had 12 touchdowns, which was tied for 29th in the country. So not bad at all for Seth McGowan, who came over. He's out of Mesquite, Texas. That's another thing. He has a lot of deep ties to Texas. He's from Irving, Texas. He's Jay Boulware. He's done a lot of his top recruits have came out of the state of Texas. And I mentioned he had spent a little bit of time on the Texas staff and also on the Oklahoma staff, which we'll get to later. But he was the associate head coach of special teams and tight ends at Texas in 2020. In between his time at Texas, his 1 year at Texas, and his time at Kentucky, he spent some time as an intern in the NFL. But he spent 7 years on the staff at Oklahoma under both Bob Stoops and Lincoln Riley. While he was there, he coached special teams, he coached running backs, and he coached tight ends. Obviously didn't coach running backs and tight ends at the same time. I think he started out his career coaching tight ends and then moved over to running backs, is my understanding, or maybe vice versa. But nonetheless, he coached both during his tenure there at some point. 6 running backs. During his time at Oklahoma, he had 6 running backs rush for over 1,000 yards. West Virginia fans, and this was during Oklahoma's time in the Big 12. You can probably remember a couple of names. Kennedy Brooks, Trey Sermon. Not only did he develop those guys, he also is responsible for recruiting those guys. So he recruited Kennedy Brooks and Trey Sermon to Oklahoma while he was there, at least according to 24/7 Sports. He also helped coach and develop Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon, both of whom went in the NFL draft, pretty high draft picks. Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine, both good NFL careers. Perine's still in the NFL. Mixon, I'm not sure about, but both of them were very talented, did a lot of damage to West Virginia while they were at Oklahoma. And remember a guy named by the name of Blake Bell? Remember how they converted him from a quarterback to a tight end while he was in Oklahoma? Well, guess who was his tight ends coach? Jay Boulware. That's right. Jay Boulware coached Blake Bell from quarterback to tight end. He ended up getting drafted into the NFL as a tight end after playing the position for only one season. So shows you he's really good at developing players, even if they're coming over to play new positions. He spent time on the Auburn staff. I mentioned that the year they won the national title. He coached tight ends and special teams there. He had a tight end, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the guy's name, young man's name, but he led the SEC in touchdown catches by tight ends, I believe, with 14. He was very talented on that national championship winning team under Gene Chizik, with Gus Malzahn being the OC, and of course Boulware being their special teams coordinator and tight ends coach. But he has a really good track record of developing running backs, of recruiting good players, especially running backs. Has coached has recruited a ton of 4-star recruits in his career. Also a lot of 3-stars, obviously, but a ton of 4-stars, mostly while he was at Oklahoma. I do want to mention though, he's also coached. I mentioned Stoops and I mentioned Riley and some others. He also spent some time coaching under Kyle Whittingham at Utah when Utah was in the Mountain West Conference. So he has spent time under some really, really good football coaches, some of the best to ever do it. Whittingham, Stoops, Riley. I don't know that I'd put Riley in one of the best to ever do it conversation, but he's still a really good coach. Definitely one of the best offensive minds to ever do it. You could definitely say that, I think. Gus Malzahn, known as a great offensive coach. So he spent some time under some really talented coaches, learning how to run offenses and how to coach players. And we'll talk in a minute about how I think he's a fit for West Virginia's offense. But when you look at here's what I think is so impressive about Boulware. Not only take the running backs out of the equation. This is why I hope he has some hand in coaching special teams. When you look at his track record coaching special teams, when he was at Auburn, let me flip my notes back over here. When he was at Auburn, he recruited SEC and coached SEC's all-time leading scorer, Daniel Carlson. And he had a really good special teams unit throughout his time there. And he's had really, when you look back through his career, he's really had good special team units everywhere he's been. And I wrote down some more notes here about his special teams prowess. At Kentucky in 2024, he had kicker Alex Rayner, who was a Lou Groza finalist. He also coached kick returner Berrien Brown, who was an all-SEC first-teamer, who had 5 kickoff return touchdowns in his career. So not only can he coach specialists, he can also coach returners, and has really good punt coverage and kick coverage teams. He's just known. Just go read his bio. Go read his bio. Where I got my information from UKathletics.com. Also got some information from some other sites too. But man, he's just really, really solid track record coaching special teams. Look at his time at Oklahoma. Special teams produced 10 touchdowns during his time there, which was 7 years. 10 touchdowns, a safety, and 3 two-point conversions that were returned. So that's 14 times his special teams unit scored in 7 seasons. That's really good. Had a Lou Groza semifinalist while he was at Oklahoma named Austin Siebert, who also was not only a Lou Groza semifinalist, was also a Ray Guy semifinalist, and was Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Year in 2018. Is the all-time FBS scoring leader among kickers, or at least he was at that time, Austin Siebert. And look, West Virginia's kicking game was pretty good as far as field goals and extra points, but they struggled at times on kickoffs. They struggled at times in the return game. So if you have somebody on your staff like a Boulware, and I'm not saying you fire Pat Kirkland, but maybe you move him to a different position, it wouldn't be firing. They just wouldn't renew his contract. But I think you have to have Jay Boulware somehow involved in special teams with his track record. I just don't see how you don't. Now, I'm not sure if they plan on doing that or not. Here's the article that was over at FootballScoop. It says, West Virginia recently saw veteran running backs coach Larry Porter depart for Alex Golesh's new regime at Auburn, a return to where Porter previously enjoyed strong coaching success. Now, Rich Rodriguez's program is set to reacquire a coach with extensive Southeastern Conference and Power Conference coaching experience. Multiple sources tell FootballScoop that Jay Boulware, Kentucky's running backs coach and special teams coordinator, is set to join the Mountaineer staff. Per sources, Boulware is not expected to formally start with the West Virginia program until after the new year. In addition to spending his past 3 seasons in Mark Stoops' Kentucky Wildcats program, Boulware also coached running backs and assisted with special teams at the University of Texas earlier this decade. A former University of Texas O-lineman and multi-time staffer with the Longhorns, Boulware also has experience at Arizona, Auburn, and Utah in his 3 decades-long coaching career. I said 25 years. It's actually 30. Or close to 30 anyway. Rebuilding the roster from almost the ground up, West Virginia had a notable overtime win. Okay, it goes on to talk about West Virginia's season. Now, it doesn't say specifically that he will be running backs coach, but you can kind of assume that because of his track record. But again, I'll be interested to see if he fills any other roles on that staff. Does he also do special teams, like I mentioned? Or do they hire somebody else's tight end, running backs coach and put him on special teams or coaching? I don't know. Coach Rod said that he talked like he might make some staff changes, that it was not out of the question. So I would not be surprised to see other coaches leave and also other coaches come in to join the staff. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments what you think about the hire of Jay Boulware from Kentucky to be, it appears at least, the new running backs coach for the Mountaineers. Let's go ahead and check the chat room. We've got your boy Coop in the house. We have Devil Dog. We have Kenny Evans, who's a VIP member. Says, does he have any recruits to bring with him? It's a great question. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't looked into it that deep, but I would imagine there are some guys who have probably committed to Kentucky to play for Boulware that could potentially enter the portal once it opens in January. And there could even be some, does Seth McGowan, the running back from Kentucky, does he enter the portal now to go play? Because he started off his career in Oklahoma in 2020. Is that right? There's a 3-year gap. Never mind. Seth McGowan was a senior, so it doesn't look like he has eligibility left. Looks like he only played 3 years of college football, though. But he had like a 3-year gap where he didn't play at all for whatever reason. So he might still have eligibility remaining. Maybe he went the JUCO route. Not sure. But in 2020, he was at Oklahoma, where he likely would have been recruited to Oklahoma potentially. Let me look at the timeline here. 22, 21. Nah, he likely would have been recruited. He was either recruited to Oklahoma by Boulware or whoever followed Boulware's at Oklahoma. Not 100% sure. But then he spent time. McGowan also was at New Mexico State in 24, and then obviously at Kentucky in 25, where he had 725 yards rushing, as I mentioned, on 165 carries, but also had 12 touchdowns. He's the only one I know of. Let me look at some other running backs they had on their roster. Had a junior named Dante Dowdell who rushed for 560 yards, 5 yards per carry. Looks like he also has at least one more year of eligibility. He spent time in Oregon, Nebraska, and Kentucky. Rushed for over 600 yards for Nebraska in 2024. You have Jason Patterson, a freshman at Kentucky, who carried it 57 times for 225 yards. Looks like he's a redshirt freshman because he was also on the roster in 2024. I think that's another young man who Boulware recruited, was Patterson. So there are some players on that roster who could potentially enter the portal and follow Boulware to West Virginia. You've got Tavani Mizell, another freshman running back. Only had 3 carries on the season, so not sure, but he's out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But as far as his freshman recruits, I do not know who he recruited, but I did see, pretty much everything I've seen on social media about Boulware talks about how good of a recruiter he is, and that he's done a great job at Kentucky recruiting players. So looks like West Virginia got themselves a good one here, assuming these reports are accurate. This has not been announced by the school yet. It's just in reports by FootballScoop right now and other outlets. Can he coach O-line? I don't know. He probably can. He played O-line, so I don't see why not. Oh, I want to talk about where he fits in Coach Rod's offense. When you look at the offense, he at that offense at Auburn in 2014, that offense, there's a lot of similarities between that offense that won the national championship at Auburn and what Rich Rod likes to do at West Virginia. Now, Gus Malzahn has taken that offense and added some of his own wrinkles to it, but the base, they like to run, they like to go fast. It's a spread you out, run heavy offense. They like to utilize the read option. They like to utilize the zone. So, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. Zone read is what I got wrote down. Up-tempo, spread, zone read. A lot of similarities between those offenses. So he should be able to come in and it shouldn't take him long to get familiar with the offense and what Coach Rod likes to do offensively. I don't think that'll be an issue because he's going to know the basics already. And so, yeah, I really like it and would not be surprised if he's coaching multiple positions, but he's going to be another good recruiter and another veteran coach on his staff who has a ton of Power 4 experience, and I think that's valuable. Has coached in a lot of bowl games, has coached, like I mentioned, in a BCS national title game, coached in a lot of New Year's Six games, just a ton of experience under his belt. Raven says she wouldn't mind a new O-line coach. After this season, I don't have any hope in Bignell. Unfortunately, Raven, I think a lot of people agree with you. Devil Dog says, I feel like this guy is going to be a solid hire. Look at the list of top shelf running backs he has coached. Absolutely. I mentioned a couple of them, P. Ryan, Kennedy Brooks. Why has he been so many places? Why is he leaving Kentucky? Kentucky's coach got fired, man. Mark Stoops got canned from Kentucky. Has probably been the case in most of these jobs he's had. If you look, I mean, he was at Oklahoma for 7 years under 2 different coaches. I think that speaks highly of him and his ability. The fact that both coaches kept him. And then, 3 years at Kentucky, he likely wouldn't have left there had Stoops not gotten fired. So, yeah, he's not a guy. I don't see him as a journeyman. When you look at the fact he's been coaching for almost 30 years, it's not really a lot of places if you think about it. WVU Fan 13 in the house, who's a paid VIP member, says, I was listening to Three Guys podcast today. Brad and Hoppy did the ODU South Florida game. Brad was talking about the research he did on ODU quarterback Joseph, who was going in the transfer portal. I have to go back and listen to that then. Joseph, unfortunately, didn't play in the game, but I still like to see what they had to say about him. Daniel Gigax, thanks, brother. He says, hi, Couz. I'll have to catch the replay. I'm meeting my daughter for dinner. Well, buddy, you got a lot more important things to do. So thank you, but thank you for chiming in. WVU Fan 13 says, I really hope we take a look at him. Travis Overdorf in the house. Also have Jeremiah Bostic in the house. Chevy Diesel in the house says, Bignell next, please. Your boy Cooper says, I hope he can keep Jaheim, though, Couz. I did hear it was a top choice for him. Interesting. I don't know anything about that, but that would be cool if he can. But again, I don't know what at the end it could come down. I don't know what the reasoning is. If it's a money thing, don't know if it's Gene just wanting to change the scenery. I don't know, or if it was the coaches encouraging him to leave. I don't know the answer to that. Return game was horrible. Well, he can help with that. He has experience coaching that. Not that Pat Kirkland doesn't, but again, it's never a bad thing to have extra set of eyes in the room and extra ideas in the room. Yep, not a lot of returns this year. WVU Fan 13 says, I never understood why we were not kicking off through the end zone at the beginning of the season. We did better toward the end. I think, honestly, it was just the kicker. I think the kicker they brought in to do that, for whatever reason, was not getting the job done, so they ended up going to the backup kickoff guy, Nate Flower, who's an in-state kid, and he ended up doing it. He was able to get the ball in the end zones. I think it was just a personnel thing, honestly. Need Jason Patterson, the freshman. Mike Oxlong says, have you heard anything about quarterback Jaden Davis coming to WVU? I have not, but I will definitely look into that. That's a name I hadn't heard in a while. Definitely not. He went to, was it Michigan he went to? Mike? Remind me. I know West Virginia, I know Neil Brown was recruiting him pretty hard because I think he played for Will Greer's dad. If it's the same quarterback I'm thinking about, he played for Will Greer's dad down in North Carolina. Can't we try to get Garen Justice to come home to WVU? I know he still loves the Mountaineers. Yeah, man, he's in a really good place in SMU. He's not only the O-line coach, I think he's also the associate head coach and maybe even run game coordinator, something like that. I think he's making about $1 million plus a year, or at least close to it. So to come to West Virginia, he would likely require a higher title and more money. And it seems like people who move to Texas don't like to leave. So he may not want to, he might like where he's at. And maybe his family likes it in Texas. Not saying he wouldn't come home, and I would love to have him, obviously, but I just don't know if it's realistic to get him away from SMU, who has a lot more resources, loaded. They're loaded down. Their big donors are loaded down there in that, with that Texas oil money and all that. And that, the Dallas-Fort Worth market is obviously a huge market. A lot more opportunities there for NIL deals and stuff like that too. So never know. But I would definitely like to have him back. Or if they can somehow talk Rick Trickett into coming to West Virginia, that would be great too. But I really don't see either one of those happening. Bourbon Crazy's in the house. He says, after hearing about him, I don't hate to hire. Yeah, I don't either. If you're going to replace a guy like Larry Porter, who had a ton of experience, may as well do it with a guy like this who also has a ton of experience. Sorry, trying to get my camera right where I want it. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to that stuff. But anyway, yeah, I definitely don't hate to hire at all. Doesn't Rich coach with his son? Not anymore. Clint Trickett, congrats to him, actually got the job as the offensive coordinator at Arkansas. So he will be leaving Jacksonville State to go to Arkansas to be an OC in the SEC. You can't blame him for that. Jacksonville State had a great season this year, one of the top offenses in the country. Unless Rick goes with him, which Rick Trickett has made it clear he doesn't really want to coach Power 4 players because he doesn't like the new world of college sports, doesn't want to coach in the NIL era and all this rev share era. He seems to be happy where he's at Jacksonville State, but who knows? And he is he's Rick Trickett, I think, is like 77, 78 years old. Not sure how much longer he'll do it anyway. Mike says Garen was very close to taking the O-line job last year, and SMU threw a lot of money at him. Interesting. Mike, I wasn't aware of that, man. Thank you for that information. Well, maybe they can throw more at him this year to get him to come home. That would be awesome. West Virginia supposedly has a lot of more resources and a lot more money to spend now than they did last year, so maybe they can use that to get somebody like Garen Justice to come home. This is going to be a quick show. I really just wanted to get on here and talk about this, and it was so late I didn't want to try to – by the time I got it, recorded and then uploaded and edited and all that, it would have been 8, 9 o'clock before I got it out. Just too late, really, if you wanted to get views. So thought I'd go ahead and jump on and do it live. Thank you all for hopping on. I do want to remind you about Appalachia Digital, the folks who designed our website over at WV Sports Chat, where we have written content on the Mountaineers. Appalachia Digital did a great job designing that site. If you want them to design you a site for your small business, or if you want to start a blog, or if you want to start your own YouTube channel, whatever, and you need a website to go with it, Appalachia Digital can help you out. Or if you already have a site, they can help you upgrade it. They can help you get found easier on Google. They specialize in all that as well. Go give them a shout at appalachiadigital.com/Couz. Let them know I sent you. And thank them for supporting our work here on the channel and over at wvsportschat.com. Don't have a whole lot else to talk about, y'all. I do have content planned for tomorrow. That it'll be live content, but you never know. Jacob Yoho says Owen says he's always thinking about coaching with RR. Well, I'm supposed to be doing an interview with Owen very soon, and maybe I'll get a chance to ask him that question. Jacob, thank you for putting that out there, because that is something I could ask him about. He and I are trying to put something together. Hopefully it works out with our schedules. But anyway, be on the lookout for some content tomorrow, probably tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, WV Fan 13. Hopefully tomorrow, man. Hopefully tomorrow. We're trying to put it together. We'll see. Be on the lookout for it. But anyway, want to thank you all for hopping on here tonight. Be sure to share this out. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button before you leave. And if you're watching this on the replay, the thumbs up button is still a huge help. Please hit it. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. If you're watching this on the replay on your mobile device, you might see a hype button below. May not be there, maybe. I don't know. It's between the download and the thanks button. Please hit that as well. Comments help. The likes help. All that helps the YouTube algorithm. Apparently, YouTube's experiencing a lot of people on YouTube are seeing a decline in views. The YouTube algorithm is apparently changing or whatever. I have been blessed thanks to you all, and I have not experienced the same thing, but I could. The YouTube algorithm can be a finicky thing. So as long as you guys keep liking stuff, you keep watching my stuff all the way to the end, that helps a lot too. You keep dropping comments. All of that stuff helps me out. If you guys keep doing that, hopefully I can continue rolling like I am and not lose any ground, and we can keep this puppy growing. I really appreciate you all hopping on here tonight. Hope the rest of your night or day, if you're watching on the replay, is top shelf. God bless you. Q Country Roads.